not engaging. This is me totally not engaging.
How you get so big in food of this kind?
Hello, we are here to review the mid-season finale of Star Wars Resistance. We've gotten through, 9 or 10 episodes now, and we're here at the halfway point of the season. The show is so far beyond where I thought it was going to be. I was fully anticipating to not like this series until the second season. I was anticipating liking the second season, but I thought it was going to kind of follow what Star Wars series and animation have done in past times and kind of take a while to get going. And albeit, even though I was enjoying it from the beginning, the first couple episodes, it was definitely kind of laying groundwork, but it was a little hard to tell, was it laying groundwork or was it trying to find its way? And now here, at this half-season mark, I'm pretty confident in saying it was just laying groundwork. It knew what it was from the beginning, and it's all kind of leading us up to this point. I am going to discuss spoilers after this point, so if you haven't seen it yet and you want to be surprised, I highly recommend checking it out for yourself and then coming back. But with that, let's kind of get into the details. So the gist of this episode is Poe wants to know about the information that Kaz found at the end of the last episode, and they want to have this, intelligence briefing. So Kaz gets in the fireball, goes up into outer space to meet Poe. There's a little thing right in the beginning where Kaz leaves and the fireball is not in a completed state because Tam's been working on it, and Tam and Yeager kind of have this confrontation about it, and then you're worried about Kaz as he's flying away. But it ends up being a problem that lasts about 2 minutes, and then they get onto the primary portion of the story. Now the rest of the episode is Poe being sent to investigate this sector out in space to figure out if there's any First Order activity, and he wants to take Kaz along. Now, there's no real need for him to take Kaz along other than Kaz is waiting for his ship to be repaired, but I really think this is Poe kind of testing Kaz out to see what he can offer the Resistance. The big thing here is, of course, we meet General Leia, which was really exciting. We'd seen her in the first episode, but we didn't hear her. Now we get to kind of feel what it was like to have her on screen again. And I gotta say, I really liked the performance. There was a gravity, there was a weight to it. Just the way Leia comes across, you can tell she's tired of being at war, but she doesn't know how to do anything else. So I thought the characterization of her was really, really good. I also get the vibe that Leia knows there's way more going on than she wants to talk to in front of Kaz. And a lot of that comes from the novel Bloodline by Claudia Gray. And if you haven't read that yet, I really have to encourage you to read it. If you talk to anyone who recommends Star Wars books to you, they've probably never shut up about this book, so I hate to be yet another person that's not shutting up about it, but I cannot begin to tell you how much that book has focused how I see the sequel trilogy, and not in a way where I needed the book for the sequel trilogy to be good. If you care about the political state of the sequel trilogy at all, or if it's something that's been bothering you, this is really the book for you. There's just kind of inklings, when Kaz talks about how senators like his father don't really care about the First Order. There's just this backstory. Leia knows all too well exactly how a lot of those kind of centrist senators feel. And then Poe and Kaz go off. They find this station that's in the middle of this asteroid belt. It looks abandoned. It turns out it's not abandoned. It's actually scheduled for demolition. Poe really wants to figure out what's going on there. Now, he's been ordered not to engage, but in a very Poe-like manner, he's doing all of these things kind of on the line with the rules of not a lot unlike what Anakin Skywalker would have been doing in this situation. So he's rushing in and trying to bend the rules because he's trying to ultimately do what's right, even though it's putting others in danger. We see that at the end when the station ultimately explodes and Kaz has a hard time getting away. There's a brief moment where Poe thinks Kaz has died and he almost has to face the consequences of his actions, but he doesn't. Kaz is fine, so then everything Poe has done has been justified because they got the information and they got out. And I think this adds a lot to The Last Jedi because it explains Poe's recklessness. He's making all of these decisions because he's never really had to lose people before. Now, I will admit I have not read all of the Poe comics, so maybe some of this happens in the Poe comic that I'm unaware of. But to me, when I watch The Last Jedi, and I see that kind of opening battle where Poe tries to destroy the Dreadnought, I see a man who's lost people under command for one of the first times, if not the first time, and so many of his actions the rest of the movie are informed by having to deal with the consequences of something he chose to do, and the deaths that came from it, and needing to find meaning in the deaths that could have, in theory, been caused by his hand. I mean, ultimately the First Order is responsible, but he's the one that sent the people in. So this episode, to me, was really good for The Last Jedi because it added a lot of kind of backstory to Poe's mindset as he goes through that film. In general, it's just really fun to listen to Oscar Isaac run around a base, and then Gwendolyn Christie show up, and she's running around the base, and there's a point where you see Poe and Phasma on screen together, even though you're not listening to the two actors talk. It was still just really exciting to be a part of that, and it really kind of got the fan in me going. I also really liked the contrast between Kaz and Poe throughout the episode. As I said, Poe is behaving very recklessly. We've seen Kaz behave recklessly in the past, kind of running away from his mechanic duties to try to do his duty as a spy. To me, what we see here is that Kaz is a rebel, but he's a rebel who needs duty. Poe is a rebel regardless of whether or not he's a rebel. Poe is a rebel even unto his orders within this resistance/rebellion. Kaz is a rebel because he is so worried about his own duty. I think that kind of shows the mindset difference between the two of them. Also, Kaz having never fired a blaster before outside of a simulation kind of adds to this ongoing theory I have that Kaz's dad is the reason why he had a position of high rapport within the New Republic Navy. I've seen some people kind of have this complaint about Kaz's character that he seems too incompetent for the role that he had, but the more I'm seeing, the more I think that, yes, Kaz is too incompetent for the role that he has, and that's the point, because Daddy put him there. I think it could also say something about the state of the New Republic military and how perhaps they're just not as elite as we might have expected them to be. I mentioned in last week's review that I'm leaning more and more heavily towards Kaz's dad, the mysterious, fuzzy figure from the first episode might end up being, the First Order sympathizer we've been looking for. And the fact that Kaz's dad came up in this episode at all has me thinking that even more now. So far with this show, they've been really good about planting seeds within the beginning of episodes that come to fruition, that end up being what the solution to the end of the episode is about, and I think that Kaz's dad might be the seed in the first episode that comes to fruition towards the end of the season. Also, to that point, I really like this idea that they go to this abandoned base and that the First Order wants to explode it to cover their tracks on trying to mine a particular kind of mineral and that sort of thing. So it reminds me, leading up to Rogue One, we had all these books that came out, Tarkin, Catalyst, Rebel Rising. I think Thrawn came out after Rogue One, but it came out kind of in that time period. And all of these books kind of had in common where there were things going on where the Empire was gathering resources, and no one knew why the Empire was gathering resources. Of course, we know that they were gathering resources to build the Death Star, and we're seeing that kind of mirror image of that here, where the First Order is gathering all these resources to build Star Killer Base. And it's kind of fun to see that conspiracy play out too, especially with the kind of dramatic irony that we know what's about to happen, and we can't scream at the television loud enough for any of the characters to hear us. Now, story stuff aside, I have to say the animation effects in this episode were brilliant. The explosions looked great. The space flying looked great. Phasma looked stellar. There were so many images in the episode that looked absolutely cinematic. And I gotta say, the music was exceptionally on point too. The music has never been bad, but how good the music was really stood out to me in this particular episode. So that's it for this first half of the first season. As of right now, I don't know if we know when the episodes are coming back. If it follows the pattern that Rebels did, we're in for a nice long wait, so we better buckle in and just get our speculation hats on, because there's not a whole lot else to do when it comes to Resistance between now and then. What are your thoughts? What are your theories? How did you feel about this episode? How do you feel about the series now that we have so many episodes under our belt? I would love to hear about all of that in the comments. And if you're not already, please follow us on Twitter at Port Haven Forums. Visit port-haven.com for even more. We've started a Discord channel, and if you want to discuss the show with us in our Discord, we'd be honored if you would join us. And until next time, keep it real and fly casual.
Cooking can be fun!